Good evening on the 17th day of February 2026 on The Explainer tonight.
I have no interest in running the city of Nairobi. My hands are full.
It is not a transfer, but a collaboration, which is encouraged and which holds true regard to the mandate given to both of us.
From the Nairobi Metropolitan Police Unit to an 80 billion shillings boost, President Ruto and Nairobi Governor Sakaja sign a cooperation deal to enhance service delivery in the capital.
Kenya Aviation Workers Union would like to call off the strike action on terms that have been agreed.
Back to work. Aviation workers call off strike after 2 days of industrial action that caused flight delays in and out of JKIA.
A democratic competition should be allowed to grow in our country and not hindered by senseless violence against innocent wananchi.
But we're not taking into account where that money is coming from, how much is being spent, what it is being spent on.
Stop early campaigns. Civil society groups warn against ongoing early campaigns and ask IEBC to rein in politicians disobeying the law. How a graduate teacher traded his chalk and lesson plans for a motorbike and a helmet. And on The Explainer tonight, we are going to be speaking with Faith Odhiambo, who is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. The conversation coming ahead of the elections by the LSK for them to choose their next set of leaders later this week on Thursday. Lots to talk about. LSK today and LSK tomorrow, and the role that it plays in the country's governance and democracy, as well as a host of other issues, even as we continue to go into an election year. Faith Odhiambo here. Maybe it's an exit interview, maybe it isn't. All your questions, of course, we can pose to her. She will be here in just a moment on The Explainer, but also tonight we have the day's sports news, and Emmanuel, the man with the sports news, is here.
Yes, indeed. Good to be with you again tonight, Yvonne. And we have a range of sports going on today. We have a big mix-up at Tusker FC in the Kenya Premier League, and we have news from our only Kenyan representative at the Winter Olympics. So a lot more to come over there.
Sounds interesting. All right, that, of course, is all on The Explainer that starts right now.
Live from Citizen TV, this is The Explainer with Yvonne Okwara.
Good evening once again. Liz Otieno is our sign language interpreter. We would like to begin the program tonight with the national government that is to inject an additional 80 billion shillings of funding to Nairobi County under a new deal aimed at strengthening the performance of county functions and improving service delivery to the capital city. Under the new collaboration agreement signed today, a joint steering committee chaired by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi will oversee the implementation of 4 key sectors, including housing, roads, water provision and waste management within the city. Stephen Latour reports.
Excellencies, kind permission, sir, I now... In a signing ceremony held at State House, Nairobi, Nairobi County opened doors for the national government to collaborate in provision of services in 4 critical sectors, including waste management, road development, housing and water provision.
Allow me to first confirm that we've had tea. The last time such a document was signed, a similar one, people had other things.
In the deal, a steering committee has been established to be chaired by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, while Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja will be the vice chair. The steering committee shall be meeting quarterly. Others that will sit in the steering committee include Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, his Treasury counterpart John Mbadi, as well as CSs in charge of lands, environment, energy, water and 2 attorneys. The deal has also established an implementation Compensation Committee that will be chaired by Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja.
There is no transfer of functions happening. For the avoidance of doubt, I have no interest in running the city of Nairobi. My hands are full. The governor and his team must run the city of Nairobi.
This is not a transfer of functions, as happened during the NMS time, which was a misadventure that left this city with a 16 billion shillings pending bills whole, and which did not augur well with the true spirit of devolution. It is not a transfer, but a collaboration, which is encouraged and which holds true regard to the mandate given to both of us by the people of Kenya and the citizens of Nairobi.
The deal signed Tuesday will see the national government inject additional funding amounting to 80 billion shillings, 4 times more than what it received in the current financial year. 3.7 billion shillings will be used to modernize street lighting in the capital city, 1.5 billion shillings to purchase transformers for last-mile connectivity in Nairobi, and a total of 5 billion shillings for water treatment and supply to the ballooning population in Nairobi. 9 billion shillings has been allocated in the deal for a 27-kilometer sewer line in the northern corridor, with 4 billion shillings set to be used for waste management. The collaboration agreement will also cover security, with the deal seeking to have Nairobi Metropolitan Police Unit that will collaborate with city askaris to restore order in the capital city.
I therefore direct the Cabinet Secretary for Interior to prepare and present within 60 days a framework for a dedicated Nairobi Metropolitan Police Unit.
Devolution is not a competition. Devolution is a collaboration. Your Excellency, devolution is like asking a bird asking, and I've said this before, for a bird to fly, which wing does it need, the right wing or the left wing? It needs both wings to fly, the national government and the county government.
We have to do much more for Nairobi, for this country, for the capital city. And we have to go beyond the comfort zones that have been there.
The deal reads in part, the agreement shall become effective 14 days from the date of execution and shall remain in force for an initial period of 24 months from the date of execution, subject to renewal. The document now goes to the County Assembly of Nairobi to facilitate public participation within the next 14 days. Parties may terminate this agreement mutually, or a party may terminate this agreement by giving 6 months' notice to the other party.
Singapore, here we come.
The national government and the county government of Nairobi has insisted that this is not a transfer of functions, but simply a collaboration between the two levels of government in what has now seen Nairobi City County bag an 80 billion shillings additional funding to make it green under the sun. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, State House, Nairobi.
Now, the cooperation agreement between the national government and Nairobi City County government becomes the second time City Hall has sought the intervention of the national government since the advent of devolution. Ayub Abdikadir reports on the agreement and what's entailed therein, which invokes the city's status as special, thus the need for working together.
While City Hall is granted constitutional autonomy on self-administration, and Article 187 of the law envisioning transfer of functions, the scope of the collaboration agreement seemingly paints an administration unable to carry out its role, seeking support while sheltering under Article 189 of the Constitution.
Can give them a round of applause.
Which spells out cooperation between the two levels of governments. A State House outing that largely reflected how tedious a task managing Nairobi City County has become. And while President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2020 turned to the military for remedial measures, bringing in now retired Lieutenant General Mohamed Badi to administer the county, after former Governor Mike Sonko handed over key functions, the former President William Ruto will take remains unknown, despite downplaying an NMS-style takeover. On the financing mechanism, though the framework envisions joint agreement for financing of all programs, questions abound over the county's financial viability as the richest, with on-source revenue collections hitting the highest in the financial year 2024-25, fetching more than 12.1 billion Kenya shillings. President William Ruto decrying the constitutional financial architecture for the devolved units, instead prescribing a substitution.
The fiscal and operational framework of county financing was not designed for a capital city of this scale and responsibility. Nairobi carries national, regional, and global obligations, but is funded largely through the same formula as other counties.
Your Excellency, in the 13 years of devolution, Nairobi City County has not had an opportunity to leverage and benefit from its unique position as a capital city of the Republic of Kenya to get the special attention, resources, and support it requires for the benefit of the people.
And while City Hall has been bedeviled by a mix of maladministration and failures in financial management, the cooperation agreement, which comes 6 years after Governor Mike Sonko's outing at State House, now symbolizes low faith in its leadership. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV.
Right, and now let's try to get some understanding of this agreement and where it falls in law. Faith Odhiambo, the president of the Law Society of Kenya, is here with us. Thank you very much for joining us, Madam President. Let's speak about this agreement. Does, devolution and the Constitution envision such an arrangement? This time they're calling it cooperation.
Well, it's a thin line between cooperation and usurpation of the roles of the county government. If we look at the NMS decision that Okia Mutata had petitioned the court and Justice Wasilwa ruled against the transfer of responsibilities from the county government to the national government. And I know they have tried to couch it that there is no transfer of functions because that would have required public participation as well as county assembly approving the same. However, they may have alluded in this agreement that there would be public participation. However, there's no mention of the county assembly, and they have tried to be very clear that there's no transfer of functions. But, there'll be a question thereafter if there's an overlap of responsibilities and duties, just looking at the recent decision by the High Court with regards to the attempt to transfer functions of Amboseli National Park to the Kajiado County. Yeah. So though these are still conservatory orders set in place, it still brings out therefore that under the Constitution there is a very clear line trying to separate the roles of the national government and the county government.
Yeah, and when we speak of usurpation or ceding of functions, as it were, interestingly, there's a steering committee that's supposed to oversee these functions, and the constitution of that committee is interesting, very heavy on the side of national government. I believe it's 8 cabinet secretaries, the Attorney General, and on the county government side, it's the governor and perhaps 3 representatives from the county. What does that say even just initially about how this is going to be run?
Those are the questions now that may later bring in the need for judicial intervention and interpretation. Because even if you look at the implementation framework, you may see that the county takes the chairmanship, but you still see predominantly the PSs from the national government take a huge role. And so that delicate line in terms of ensuring that there's no overlap and there's no attempts to take over any functions, and there must be a very clear and strong collaboration that the county government also has equal say, as well as the national government, in terms of how they will run and manage this arrangement. But I say it's still a fine line. We are waiting to see. I'm sure they have couched it basing on the decision of Justice Wasilwa to just try and meet and tick the boxes. But how they're going to run and implement will be the bigger question, because that is when it may raise need for judicial intervention.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, the chairperson of that committee is the principal cabinet secretary and then deputized by the governor of Nairobi County. How does this compare? And I know you've talked about, the previous arrangement and what the court has said. I mean, this is not the first time we're seeing this, Faith. I mean, we've had NMS, we've had, previous arrangements. So there seems to be something happening between the national government and Nairobi City County.
Well, even the realization that Nairobi County still collects the highest amount. The question is, is the county trying to say that they are not able to sustainably run their functions, and hence they need the government support because it's couched as a joint committee, and they have, of course, used the provisions allowing for a joint committee to be formed, that they can collaborate, which is what they have done. The question is, how will they implement that? Will we see that done? And that's why I'm telling you, they have this agreement has been couched based on what Justice Wasilwa said, and the fine lines or public participation. Where is the need for the county assembly to come in? Is there an outright transfer of functions? And you've even had the governor saying that this is clearly not a transfer of functions. We're just sitting together to agree so that we're able to run this county in a more economic manner and ensure that things are working well in this county. But we're waiting to see how the mechanics of that actually comes through, because we might see in word they'll say it's not NMS, but in action it could turn out to be. Okay. And so that's why I say it's still a fine line. We have seen this before. Yeah. And I think government is refining itself based on court interventions that have been done before. And so we'll wait and see if there's court intervention again, and if court refines final lines in terms of, is this overstepping the mandate of where national government should play a role with the county. And this is not to say that national government cannot work with the county to ensure efficiency. Yeah. But I think bringing out that fine line of the role that national government and counties should play is quite important, because that's the only way that you can realize actual devolution and people actually benefit from resources, and that they are not tangled to the top as we have seen in the past. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Stay with us, Faith. We've got lots to talk about. How many days left to be president? 2 days. Yeah, the election takes place on Thursday. I hand over at my AGM on 27th, but yes, they will have a new president-elect in 2 days. In 2 days. We'll talk a lot about that, a lot about the state of law and order in the country, your tenure, and what's next for you. We've got lots to talk about. Please also do send us your questions and comments. The hashtag is Citizen Explainer, at Citizen TV, at Yvonne Okwara. If you wish to send us a text message, the number is 22422. Speaking with Faith Odhiambo, the president of the Law Society of Kenya. Send in your questions and comments. We'll be posing that to her in the course of this live newscast. In the meantime, thousands of travelers using Kenyan airports can now breathe a sigh of relief after the Kenya Aviation Workers Union called off their strike, which had disrupted flights over the last 48 hours. The Secretary General of the Airport Workers Union, Mos Ndiema, announced the end of industrial action after a meeting with top officials from the Ministries of Transport and Labour, the management of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and the Kenya Airports Authority, where they agreed on a return-to-work formula. The relief came hours after hundreds of travellers at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport shared with Citizen TV their tribulations following the strike that affected major airlines operating in the region. Gatete Njoroge reports.
Exhausted, sleepy and hungry, Kenya's main airport was turned into a waiting bay for hundreds of stranded passengers. The strike by Kenya Aviation Workers Union, which commenced on Monday, brought operations at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to a standstill. With no air traffic controllers on duty, both local and international flights were grounded. Travelers from far and wide, many of whom had made their plans months in advance, struggled to confirm their flights as the few officials on duty were unable to provide clear answers.
Tulikuwa tunafaa ku take off at 2:10, so that means checking ilikuwa inafaa kuwa like 2 hours earlier, but since tumefika tukaambiwa hatuwezi check in since kuna an ongoing strike. Nimetoka Eldoret, nilikuwa naenda Dubai kwa shughuli za kibiashara. It will really affect me because I booked my hotel, nilikuwa nimebook kila kitu. Okay, my customers will also be affected.
With no surety, some of the stranded passengers, including tourists, had to seek for alternative means to get to their destination. For relatives who had accompanied their loved ones to the airport, it was more confusing as they were not sure of leaving them behind or going back home together until the issues are resolved.
We arrived last night from London and we got here. We didn't get a text or anything, which is a bit frustrating. We're just here for holiday to see family. And yeah, we're now getting a bus that's going to take 8 hours down to Watamu, so it's just really messed up.
Nilikuwa nimemleta kaka yangu, alikuwa anaenda Brazil kwa ajili ya masomo, na kwa sasa ametuambia kwamba ametumiwa message akaambiwa angoje kidogo.
More than 30 flights ground to a halt on Tuesday, leaving hundreds of passengers facing lost time, wasted money and disrupted plans. Relief came just after 1 p.m. KAU Secretary General Mos Ndiema called off the strike after a deal with the government.
We are happy that we've had very successful consultations and engagement, bringing together both KCAA management and KAA management. And in effect, Kenya Aviation Workers Union would like to call off the strike action.
The ministry wishes to inform all travelers and air operators that it has been agreed that the airport operations be resumed to normalcy immediately.
The return to work formula was reached after an agreement allowing employees in grade 4 and 5 at the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority to unionize, with union dues to be deducted and remitted accordingly. Other outstanding issues affecting KCAA and the Kenya Airports Authority workers will be addressed through a conciliation by a conciliator appointed by Labour Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua. It was also agreed that there shall be no victimization from either side arising from the industrial action.
With the strike called off, all efforts are now dedicated to ensuring normal operations resume at all airports in the country. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The Center for Multi-Party Democracy and Mzalendo Trust, under the Uchaguzi platform, have expressed concern over the escalating election violence witnessed during political rallies. The civil society entities are warning against ongoing early campaigns by political actors, saying that the move is against the law and denies citizens economic development. The Center for Multi-Party Democracy and Mzalendo Trust met the National Assembly Committee on Constitutional Implementation and Oversight at a stakeholders forum on the 2027 election preparedness. Seth Olale followed the proceedings.
Tear gas incidents taking place in a span of 24 hours, election observer groups are sounding the alarm over the escalating election violence and involvement of goons witnessed during political rallies. Observers under the Uchaguzi platform that brings together, among others, Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Transparency International and Mzalendo Trust, are warning that the trend could interfere with the 2027 general election process and outcome if left unchecked.
And we want to challenge the government and those in authority. A democratic competition should be allowed to grow in our country, are not hindered by senseless violence against innocent wananchi.
The early campaigns being witnessed across the political divide described as unconstitutional, with the election observer groups calling upon IEBC to disqualify the political actors implicated.
But we're not taking into account where that money is coming from, how much is being spent, what it is being spent on. And now we've also been talking a lot about the issues of violence in the campaigns, the issue of payment of goons, the problem of voter bribery, vote buying, ID buying, all these things are happening.
The civil society entities, while meeting the National Assembly Committee on Constitutional Implementation and Oversight at a stakeholders forum on 2027 election preparedness, also raised concerns of a lack of audit of the voter registry and failure to pass necessary legislation instrumental for the 2027 election preparedness.
How do we encourage IEBC to build public trust in their processes and the electoral circle? And finally, the question of integrity in our elections.
The Observer Group is also calling upon IEBC to adopt a top-notch technology system that will enable the electoral body conduct free and fair elections during the 2027 polls. With 77 weeks remaining to the 2027 general election, observers are warning that the country is less than 5% prepared to conduct the upcoming polls, insisting that effective action needs to be undertaken. Seth Olale, Citizen TV, Nairobi County.
The Luo Council of Elders is calling for an immediate truce within the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, urging rival factions to embrace dialogue and end escalating political tensions. Treasury CS John Mbadi, who hosted the elders at the National Treasury, condemned calls for anti-government protests by a section of opposition leaders, insisting there is no justifiable reason to send Kenyans to the streets. Melita Oletenges reports.
ODM is facing internal turmoil. Rivalry between two factions dubbed Linda Ground and Linda Mwananchi sharply divided over support for President William Ruto's re-election bid. Treasury CS John Mbadi now warns that the widening rift within ODM mirrors growing divisions within the Luo community, a situation the Council of Elders says must be urgently addressed through structured talks.
What we are telling them is, can you come and tell us why you strongly feel that you want to go the other side? Because in Kenya there are just two political groupings. Let's not lie to ourselves. So if you don't want to work with Ruto, who do you want to work with? You want to work with Uhuru, Wamunyoro, and the rest?
Efforts to keep ODM united, intact, and have impact in the political scene.
Mbadi says tensions between the Oburu Oginga-led faction and a group of youthful leaders, including embattled Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Embakasi East MP Babu Owino, is destructive.
Courage is not just being demonstrated by jumping over fences and kicking doors. No, that's not it. Or gates. There's a lot to it. But that Raila Odinga, who is very courageous, or who was very courageous, when time called for sitting down and dialoguing, there was no better person in dialogue than Raila Odinga. And Raila knew when now to shake hands. And he shook hands with his tormentors and with people at times you never expected.
As opposition leaders threaten fresh protests over alleged government failures on security, Mbadi has dismissed the move, arguing there is no clear cause for mass action.
And that we cannot just sit back and see our children again going back to the street, especially if there is not any clear reason or cause for going back to the street.
The Treasury CS maintains that Luo unity remains the bedrock of ODM and is urging leaders to reflect on the political direction of the community. He announced that a series of follow-up meetings will be held to resolve the stalemate. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
Let's take a break here on The Explainer tonight. Remember, there's many more stories to come that we are covering for you here on The Explainer, including that interview with Faith Odhiambo, the president of the Law Society of Kenya. We'll be back after the short break. The rule of law, governance, and her legacy at the LSK. Tonight on The Explainer, we speak to outgoing LSK President Faith Odhiambo. Welcome back. Now, Kitutu Chache South MP Anthony Kibagendi has landed himself in trouble following remarks he made on Citizen TV's Daybreak show, where he alleged that the National Assembly had been, quote, auctioned to the government. In his comments, Kibagendi accused the Speaker and his deputies of undermining and wrecking the institution, claims that drew sharp condemnation from National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, who ordered the legislators' ejection from the House. The Speaker further directed that the first-term MP be barred from attending sittings and committee meetings until he tenders a properly worded apology. Ben Kirui reports.
Kibagendi, you are now a stranger in the House.
A seemingly angered Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, moved to crack the whip on Kitutu Church's South Member of Parliament, Anthony Kibagendi, following remarks he made on Tuesday while appearing on the Daybreak program on Citizen TV.
This lady that has strategically refused to come to the studio, Honorable Gladys Boss-Sholei, yes, who, together with the Speaker, listen to me, look here, who, together with the Speaker, have handed over Parliament to become an appendage of State House.
The remarks landing the first-time Member of Parliament in hot soup, Laikipia North Member of Parliament Sarah Korere, through a point of order, faulted Kibagendi for allegedly making disparaging remarks about the Speaker and the leadership of the House during the morning talk show.
These remarks are quite contemplatable, given that we all know very well that the Speaker presides over the House on this principle of impartiality and is guided by the rules of the House.
The Right Honourable Speaker was not at Citizen TV. It was rather unfair and unbecoming of a Member of Parliament to cast aspersions on the character of the Speaker without knowing that the Speaker, full well the Speaker, was not going to have an opportunity to defend himself.
Speaker Wetangula described the episode as contempt in the face of the House, saying he had personally watched the program in which the remarks were made.
I was horrified to hear the things that Honorable Kibagendi said, that this House has been auctioned. I don't know where the auction ring was and who was holding the hammer. That this House is now an appendage to the executive, and the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker have destroyed and ruined this House.
The Kitutu Church's South MP will now be excluded from all sittings of the National Assembly and its committees, following remarks until he tenders a formal apology.
So for you, as a member of this House, first to say the House has been auctioned, then you have no business to sit in an auctioned House. So what, and this is not a matter I'm going to invite the member to explain himself, because I saw and heard with my own eyes and ears.
If you listen to what Honorable Kibagendi was saying on national TV this morning, he had no substantiation of how this House has been auctioned, and even saying very disparaging things about the Deputy Speaker, yes, who in any case was supposed to be in that show, or rather on that show, together with the Honorable Robert Mbui.
Through the standing orders of the National Assembly, a Member of Parliament may be suspended for gross disorderly misconduct, including acting in a manner that seriously undermines the dignity or orderly procedures of the House, or committing any other breach of the standing orders which, in the opinion of the Speaker, constitutes gross disorderly conduct. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Tonight, we shine a spotlight on the paradox of the teachers' shortage in the country and the rising numbers of qualified and unemployed teachers. While the country's education sector faces a shortage of nearly 100,000 teachers, over 343,000 unemployed teachers tarmac every day in search of jobs, as reality on the ground feels far removed from the political rallies where jobs are often promised like campaign flyers. Tonight, we follow the story of one graduate teacher who traded his chalk and lesson plans for a motorbike and helmet on the harsh Nairobi roads just to survive.
Right in the middle of the capital city, Nairobi, Elijah, aged 30, blends in with the rest of the border riders. He earns his daily bread from ferrying clients and running errands. This is the job that has sustained him for the last 8 years. Elijah is a product of Lenana School and the University of Nairobi. He graduated with a degree in agricultural education and extension studies. He thought this was his ticket to achieving his dream of teaching and impacting young lives and lifting his family out of the cycle of poverty.
Currently, because of lack of an opportunity, employment is becoming extremely difficult. So I had to make another plan. Getting a border, having skills, having a license. I started operating border to earn a living as I wait for an opportunity from the government, particularly Teacher Service Commission.
Elijah's teaching dream almost became a reality. In 2023, he applied for JSS internship and was posted to a city school. The assigned stipend of $17,000 after taxes was not adequate to cater for his and his family's needs.
So after writing that letter, I said, of course I was passing through depression. I had a lot of migraines. I knew it is related to this stress. So I had to excuse myself and terminate the contract. Then I recover. After some time, I come back and resume. I applied in May. I was also picked. I passed through all the processes.
He says he informed his school and by extension the TSC with which he is registered of his predicament, but that wasn't enough to secure him a lasting second internship last year.
I tried to explain. I wrote a letter, an official letter. I have evidence. I wrote that letter. But they said, no, TSC cannot give you a chance. So I had to go back. They cancel everything. I go back and they stay almost hopeless.
This reality has him on two wheels every day, grinding the tarmac in the city in an effort to put food on his family's table, clothes on their backs, and a roof over their heads. He says giving up is not an option.
I was given a degree, and that is the power to serve anywhere. So I'm not still losing hope, but I'm asking for fairness.
As he rides border border to survive, he says he is pained to see those precious TSC employment letters dished out in rallies while he and over 340,000 qualified teachers remain unemployed. A section of politicians have confirmed that there are a quarter of letters for employment they get to distribute for political gain.
We are training learners to be responsible adults. So when you just dish out letters to maybe unqualified people or just anyone else, as long as they have TSC number, they have not met the criterion of being selected to be a teacher. It's something that hurts.
While the situation for Elijah appears to be grim right now, he is still holding on to the truth in that old adage that education is the key to success. He is hopeful that the degree he acquired at the University of Nairobi will one day open those doors that seemed locked and gain him access into a classroom to enable him pursue his passion. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV in Roysambu, Nairobi.
Activist Mwimbili Mwagodi was today arraigned in Milimani, where he is to face charges of publishing false information on his X account. The prosecution is asking the court to allow for 7 days in police custody, a request which the court will rule on Wednesday. Mwabili, who was arrested on Sunday at the Lunga border and later taken to Port Police Mombasa, will spend the night at Muthaiga police station. Ode Francis reports.
Activist Mwambili Mwagodi was arraigned in Milimani after his arrest at the Lunga border in Kwale on Sunday before his court appearance.
This is the reality of President Ruto's Kenya.
DCI officers had ferried him from Port Police in Mombasa to Muthaiga police station in Nairobi.
I've been a resident of Tanzania since 2012. I was going to wind up some of the properties I have there and do some clearance with my former employer. And on the way there, through at the Lunga border, I was stopped by the Immigrations Department, who informed me that I have an active warrant of arrest against my name, and they cannot allow me to proceed. They handed me over to DCI Lunga.
Investigators allege that between January 2nd and 8th last year, Mwagodi published false, malicious, misleading, and derogatory content targeting government leadership through his X account. Prosecutors requested 7 additional days to hold him, citing the need to extract evidence from his mobile phone.
The suspect, Your Honor, has been on a run for the longest time, Your Honor, and therefore, when we say he's a flight risk, we actually mean he's a flight risk.
His defense team argued that the detention violates due process and infringes on his rights.
That instead of punishing someone who has already been in custody since Sunday, he can be let go home today and come back before this court on Friday.
Mwagodi's mother voiced concerns, demanding clarity on the specific charges against him. She said he has faced repeated ordeals since his detention in Tanzania last year.
I see nothing that Mwabili has done
that threatens this government. I am watching social media every day, and so many people are saying so many very serious things. Why? Mwabili, what is it that he has done that is a person of such great interest? What power does he have? What money does he have even to shake this country?
The officers cited a red notice allegedly issued in early 2025 by DCI investigator Michael Sang at Mazingira House. His mobile phone remains in the custody of investigators for forensic analysis. The magistrate will on Wednesday decide whether to grant the prosecution the 7 days requested to conclude investigations. Mwagodi will spend the night at Muthaiga police cells.
We will be continuing to focus on the issue of the use of the red notice, and we will continue to follow this case in the courts to establish whether the red notice has been based on a valid judicial warrant and explicit charges. The use of an unclear, undisclosed alert that is not even communicated to Mwabili risks the abuse of process.
Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
President William Ruto says Africa must take charge of its own security. The president emphasized the need to train intelligence officers locally, positioning Africa to tackle emerging security threats without relying on foreign assistance. Speaking at the inaugural National Intelligence and Research University, Ruto noted that solutions to Africa's growing security challenges, from globalization to cross-border threats, must come from within the continent. Here's Willie Lusige.
As new security challenges emerge across Africa, Kenya is leading a bold transformation in intelligence training. The graduation of 31 students from National Intelligence and Research University Nairobi, the first intelligence university in Africa, marks a historic moment.
The trajectory Nairobi has taken is fully aligned with your directives at the award of the Charter. Particularly, you are called to strengthen intra-African collaboration in the security realm and to expand Global South capabilities through advanced education and research.
Leaders hailed the event as historic, as Nairobi is the first university in Africa to offer intelligence training.
This university has lived true to its charter. This is a unique area in our higher education ecosystem that is designed to build the human capital that our intelligence community and the security sector require.
President Ruto expressed satisfaction as Nairobi awarded its first degree just 2 years after being chartered. He described the university as one-of-a-kind African institution designed to deliver homegrown solutions and reduce dependency on foreign intelligence aid.
But now we have more targeted intelligence-led operations taking place in our country because of the capacity and the ability of our National Intelligence Service. And we support this university, Your Excellency, and we believe that it should be expanded to accommodate other sectors.
This institution must focus on what has been said, African solutions for African problems.
The government is also promising reforms and funding to boost education in the country, including moving completely toward competency-based education, a student-focused funding model, and the budget increase to Kenyan shillings 765 billion in next year.
Even at the moment as we undertake our privatization process, I have given clear instructions to the Ministry of Finance. Some percentage must go to the research fund so that our universities can apply for resources so that we can build and create new knowledge.
Nairobi is the country's first university owned and run by the National Intelligence Service, NIS. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
More than 700 top-performing scholars from across the nation gathered in Nairobi for an induction prior to being deployed to equity branches countrywide for a 6-month internship. The cohort, comprising 337 Wings to Fly and Elimu scholars with grades A and A-, 106 top boys and girls from every sub-county with a grade A plane, and 290 top national scholars who scored 84 points were challenged to anchor their careers on strong personal values based on ethics and integrity.
Someone else can inspire you, but
Personal integrity remains yours. It cannot be delegated. And I really hope we understand what integrity means. Integrity means being honest, consistent, and morally upright.
Sikuwa mmoja wa wale scholars wenye wanapewa scholarships, wale ukipata A+ ama A-, unajoin hii program. Nilichukuliwa kama a top sub-county student with an A+ of 83 points. Napenda kushukuru Equity sana.
I'm here as a chaperone. I'm mentor to these 733 students, and I'm really glad to be giving back to the society and taking care of those people how I was once taken care of.
Hundreds of families affected by the 2024 dam burst in Mai Mahiu have been resettled. The 105 homeowners displaced by the flash floods received title deeds from Deputy President Kithure Kindiki. And as Emily Chebet reports, each of the affected homeowners will receive 2 acres of land, while tenants who are also affected will benefit from government support.
Nearly a year after the deadly dam burst that swept through Mai Mahiu in Nakuru County, families who lost their homes are finally receiving permanent resettlement. It was an emotional moment for hundreds of families whose homes were flattened in a single night, April 2024.
Wale ambao walikuwa wamejenga watapewa ardhi leo. Tutatoka hapa na title deed. Na wale walikuwa wamekodisha, hata hao nimeamrisha Wizara ya Ardhi baada ya kushauriana na Rais, hata wale ambao walikuwa wamekodisha mutapewa ardhi. Waziri yako na hiyo instructions.
Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki, who led government delegation in the area, directed the Ministry of Lands to expedite the acquisition process for those who had rented the homes that were swept away, adding that a land has also been secured for public utilities, including schools, hospitals, markets, places of worship, recreation facilities and ICT centers.
Familia zote zitapata pesa ya kuwasaidia kujenga. Wale walikuwa wamekodisha, wale walikuwa wamejenga. Na leo hiyo 20,000 for family ya kuwasaidia kwenda kujenga for 161 families. Mimi naacha hapa na Governor Susan Kihika.
I want to thank watu wa Mai Mahiu kwa sababu mmetugojea na mkakubali against a lot of incitement ya kwamba kazi inaendelea. Lakini nimesikia maneno ya market, nitaasiliana na Rais na Deputy President ndio tujue soko ya Mai Mahiu. Governor akituonyesha tukubaliane na nyinyi, pesa tuko nayo ya kujenga soko.
The Deputy President, who later led economic empowerment of small-scale traders in Longonot, Naivasha constituency in Nakuru County, highlighted ongoing development projects in the region, including the expansion of the Rironi-Mau Summit Highway to ease traffic congestion and reduce accidents, that he said will be completed on time.
Rais amenituma.
Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
Kenya to host a global farmers meeting in June, bringing together players from over 65 countries. Kenya is seeking to leverage the 2026 World Farmers Organization annual meeting to unlock climate financing and secure stronger global partnerships for its farmers. Officials from the World Farmers Organization and the Kenya National Farmers Federation say the meeting will be used to push for increased climate adaptation funding, fairer markets and affordable agricultural financing. The forum is also expected to generate policy commitments on youth and women inclusion, value addition and stronger farmer organizations, positioning Kenya as a key agricultural diplomacy hub while seeking tangible gains for smallholder farmers.
We are looking at global issues that affect farmers from around the world. There are several policy discussions that are going to happen, including on land use and land tenure. This affects every farmer across the world. We're also going to be talking about financial inclusion and digital literacy. This affects not only farmers in Kenya, but also around the world.
The annual meeting, the General Assembly, is a policy moment. It's a moment where farmers from around the world come together and craft the policies that become the position for the World Farmer Organization to bring the farmer voice in international fora and places, to bring what farmers envision as the right way to design climate financing.
The Export Processing Zones program recorded steady growth in 2025, fueled by an expansion in the apparel and agro-processing sectors. According to the latest data from the Export Processing Zone Authority, EPZA, export earnings rose to 135.7 billion shillings last year, up from 129 billion in 2024. This growth has also impacted the labour market, with direct employment increasing to over 95,000 workers. That's a rise of 6,000 jobs over the previous year. Exporters say the extension of the U.S. trade pact AGOA continues to provide the stability needed to secure major textile and apparel orders duty-free. The performance update coincides with a visit to EPZA headquarters by Investments and Trade Cabinet Secretary Lee Kinyanjui, who today assessed new investment flows and the program's long-term contribution to national export growth.
The President has engaged the U.S. government, and we are currently at the final levels of negotiation, starting from next week on Monday, where we are going to secure the market for Kenya beyond AGOA, so that Kenya can have a bilateral agreement, trade agreement with the U.S., so that products that are made in Kenya can access the U.S. market, free quota and with little or no tariffs for that particular matter. So those conversations are ongoing, and we are very happy that that market has sustained many livelihoods here in Kenya.
Business News, brought to you by Safaricom Business. With Lipa na M-Pesa, kumanage payments ni kwa rahisi. Join Safaricom Business today and power your progress.
My name is Emmanuel Ndungo. Let's get into the sports news now. Frenchman Julien Mete has officially taken over the reins at Tusker FC following the dismissal of Charles Okere as the head coach. Mete has the experienced hands of Anthony Kimani as his assistant. Kimani playing the same role in the national football team, the Harambee Stars. Okere has been at the helm of Tusker FC for 2 seasons and leaves the former champions in 9th in the Kenya Premier League, 15 points behind leaders Gor Mahia. Tusker has blown hot and cold this season and have won just 2 of the last 7 matches. The changes at Tusker started with 3 key foreign signings: goalkeeper Pavel Nzila and strikers Selassie Blessakai and Serval Akuala. Striker Ibrahim Joshua is also back from the team from Tanzania. Mete and Kimani face a litmus test on Saturday when they take on 3rd place Shabana FC in Kisii in a Kenya Premier League match. Moving on, the 2026 Junior Golf Foundation season teed off with the NCBA US Kids Spring Tour at the Vet Lab Sports Club. Despite the rustiness of the opening tournament, the juniors posted some impressive scores in different categories in both the boys and girls competitions. In the boys 11 years category, Parine Real had a good start with a score of 2 over par 74, finishing 3 strokes ahead of Caleb Kebathi in 2nd place. In the boys 13 to 14 years category, Shu Han Peng fought off a bad flu to win with a score of 3 over par 75. The group was very competitive, with Jeff Kivy and Adam Nesbitt tying in 2nd place, only 2 strokes behind Peng. There was a low turnout in the girls' 13 to 14-year-old, where Sikian Yu emerged the best with a score of 81, while Chloe Chiuri and Shani Karimi tied for 2nd with a score of 86.
I had 2, and I missed a few, yeah. Second 9, I feel like my iron play was better, and I was hitting greens better.
It was quite difficult because it's quite some time since I've played in Vet Lab, and the second 9, it was way hotter, the temperatures.
Off to the Winter Olympics, 6 Olympic skiers, joined by their parents, coaches and federation presidents, came together to advocate for more inclusion at the Winter Games. Representing Jamaica, Kenya, Eritrea, Madagascar, South Africa and Benin, the group gathered in Bormio, where the men's alpine races are taking place this year. Issa Gashiringiri Laborde represented Kenya and has already completed in his Olympic race. The 18-year-old finished 66th out of 73 athletes in the giant slalom, competing against the likes of ski giants Marco Odermatt and Lucas Pinheiro Brathen. The skiers from the Six Nations were brought together by Henry Rivers III, coach of the Jamaica ski team and father of competing slalom skier Henry Rivers IV. Rivers is also president of the National Brotherhood of Snow Sport, an organization that aims to support athletes of color in snow sports.
When we talk about Olympics, we talk about the whole world, we talk about the whole countries. So I think every country have the place to be there, even if they don't have big points, even if they don't have enough training, they do their best.
And I am so happy today to see the other nations, which in my all Olympics I was doing, we were not together like what they have done. 2026, this Olympic is great.